Hello ladies and gents, in this video we will talk about the related resources and grouping in UI5 when using OData version 2. Most APIs consist of resources that relate to each other, and in our case, for example, for every product we have a category relation. Now let's see how relations are defined. Let me first collapse these entities and the entity container. And let's check our product entity type and this association here. Relations are defined with associations, which define the source and target entities as well as multiplicity of the association. And just like an entity is a template for entity set, so this product entity type is the template of products entity set here. Associations are the templates for the association sets. So this one named product category products is the template association for this association set. Now let's check what the associations look like. Here we have two AND tags with different roles. The first one defines a role named product category and the AND type is a product. So this defines the relationship from a category to a product, and the multiplicity is a star, which means it can be any number of AND products. So a category can have 0 products or it can have any number of products. And we also have the relation that's the other way around. So the AND type is a category, so which means this starts from a product and relates to a category. And accordingly the multiplicity is 0 to 1 because a product can have only one category. Let's see how it works for an entity type. Here for the product entity we have our usual properties and we have two navigation properties. Let's check the one named category and we see the relationship name, so it's this one which matches this association name here, and here we see it's from this role to this role, and the AND role category products is the one we are looking for in our association, this role attribute, and it matches this one, and this means it's pointing to a category and it's a 0 to 1 relation, so it's either null or it's only one category will be returned. Let's also quickly check the entity container and the association set. Here we can see that for our association, for the product and category relation, we have for our role that we are going to use from a product to a category, we see that the entity set, so the results, will be the categories of type. Let's see what this actually looks. Now instead of metadata, let's get our products. And let's also add our $format equals JSON parameter, so it looks a little better. We need question mark. And let's take the first product for example, and how we access an entity by its ID is we just use parentheses, and if we have only one key attribute, which is the case here and it's the ID, we just put it directly inside our parentheses, and now we have the product with the ID 0. And we can see this category field which is deferred because we haven't requested it yet, and we can already see how we can request it. Now if we check the metadata again, the field we need is the name of this navigation property. It's named category, so if we add it right after our URL and with a slash, now we just get the category information of our product. This works well, but this is actually not very convenient because we would need several requests. If we do it like this, first we would need to get our product and another request just for the category, etc. But since we have our products list, what we can do is when we request our products, we can also request the navigation properties along. And we can do it using another URL parameter named $expand. So let's add that one and $expand. And here we simply pass in the name of the navigation property, which is category here. And now category is not deferred, but we can see the category information for all our products here. If we want to expand more than one, we can just add it. Let's also add the supplier with a comma as the value of our expand parameter. And now we have both. And here we also see that the category itself has a navigation property named products. And how we can do these nested expands is we have the category. Let's remove supplier for now, or just keep it and add another one with a comma. And now we first say category and we add a slash, then the navigation property inside the category. And now we have a product, its category, and the products of that category as well. Now let's see how we can use this in our app. Let's go back to our code. And let's first open our filter dialog fragment here. And instead of hard coding these, we will also fetch it from our OData service. But first, this filter key is no longer category. Let's see what it will be now. So if we check the category of our first product here, it has two attributes, the ID and the name. And since we will not use a string for filtering, we will use the ID. And now this should be the navigation property name, so category, and then slash the ID field. And let's see which categories we have for filtering. And for that, instead of products, we also have another entity set named categories. And let's remove the expand. And we can simply use this entity set as our value help. So let me copy this entity set name, and here we can add items equals, and it's simply slash categories. And for the items, we just need to define a template. Our key field will be the ID, and text will be the name field from here. And since these are bindings, we have to use curly braces. So let's add those as well. Let's save and quickly check if it works. We press filter, select category. We have food, beverages, electronics. Is that the case? We can already see a categories request to our OData. And indeed we got back 3 categories: food, beverages, and electronics. Now let's also request the category information along with our product, so we can have the category information here as well. And remember, we used the expand parameter for that, so let's go back to the items binding of our list. And let's say under the path we introduced another attribute named parameters, which will be an object. And in here we will use the expand one. We specify it without the dollar here in XML. And the value, remember, it should be the navigation property name, and it's called category. Now let's save and quickly check the result of our request now. And now we get category information as well, with an ID and a name. And now we can simply use the name of our category as our information here. So let's find our attribute, not release date. Here it's the category. We don't need a formatter now. Let's remove everything. And now the path will be category, and then the attribute is name. And we add it with a slash. Now if we check our app, we can see the name of our category as our attribute. For our filtering to work, we also have to make some changes, obviously. So let's go to our app controller and find our on confirm filter event, the event handler actually. And instead of getting the filter items, we need a bit more information. So we will use another event parameter named filter compound keys. Let me type it here. And let's name it a filter keys simply. Let's see what it looks like before we implement anything. Let's go to our console here and find our event handler. Here say we selected food and beverages, and let's see what this compound keys look like. Now it's an object, and the attribute name is the key of our filter item, and then we have the selected keys, so category IDs, as attributes as well. Let's select another one, so we have more than one. Let's add a price less than 10. Okay, and now if we check, it's still an object, but now we have two attributes. For price, again we have the key and a value, and for category ID we have two values. Now let's go back to our code and use this. Here, instead of looping over the filter items, simply let me actually get rid of this completely. Now we need to loop over our compound keys, and first we have to convert it into an array. And how we can do is using object.entries method, and we pass in our filter keys, and now we can loop over them with for each. And remember, we had the path, the key of our filter, and then the values that we selected. So let's destruct those using array destruction. The first one will be as path, and the second one we have is the values. Let's name it all values, and then we can specify our callback function. And here we again need to loop over our values, our selected values. So first we looped over this category ID and price, and now since we can select multiple, we need to loop over these attributes. And again we will use object dot, and since we only need the keys this time, let's say keys instead of entries, we pass in the all values, this part right here, and again loop over with for each. Let's name it as key. And now we have two options. First one, if our key includes double underscore, so if it's one of the filters that we defined here ourselves, which are hard-coded, which is just the price actually, then our logic will be, we will push a new filter to our a filter array. Let's copy it here, dot push, and we say again new filter. And it will be enough just to destructure this key we have, because remember we have to pass in the path of our filter, then the operator, then the values 1 or 2, and it's in the same order, so we can simply say here dot 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 skey, and in order to convert it to an array we simply say split and double underscore, and else it means it's the category, so it's coming from our OData service, and then we can say a filter dot push, again new filter, and this time we already have the path, which is coming from here, from our object entries. It's the key and it's category / ID, and we define it as such here. So our path is simply as path here, and then our operator will be equals, so filter operator dot eq, and the value will be the value that we selected. So this key right here that we defined as skey, which corresponds to these parts here. Remember, we selected the first two categories and the IDs of those were 0 and 1, and electronics was 2, which doesn't exist here. Now let's save and check if it all works okay. We say filter, category, and we want the food only. Here, remove this breakpoint. We have an error, filter operator is not defined. Let's check. We have filter and indeed no operator, so let's import that as well. It's named filter operator. Let's use the same name. Save and try again. Category food, okay. Now we have more errors. Let's check our network tab. And here is our filter request. We have the skip and top attributes for paging, then filter equals 0 and expand equals category. Okay, we have a typo. Filter equals, this should be category. Let's find that one. Fix that and try again. Now we got back two responses. First one is the count, which is 1, so apparently we have only one food, and our request here is the same. We tried with our browser here, and let's also add another one. Let's say beverages. We should get more now, and indeed we have, let's see how many. Now we have 7. Now let's also adjust our grouping logic. Let's open our group dialog, and this time this should also be category / ID. And if we check now, let's remove all the filters. Okay, already removed, and let's group by category. Now the grouping works, but the headers are just unknown. So let's go back and fix that as well. Let's check if we already have the group header factory function for our list items binding, and we have one named format group header. Let's check that in model formatter.js, and this one. Now this should work already because we used the same keys, but the only difference is the keys on our OData are numbers, but we used strings here. So let me convert these to numbers. And now let's try again. Group by category. No, this looks better. Let's see if we have any electronic stuff. Yes, we also have one. And inside our formatter, since we no longer need this format category function, let's delete that one as a cleanup. And one more refactoring we can do is if we check our app controller, whenever we load and display one of our fragments, we use some duplicated code, this fragment.load part. So let's create a convenience method for that so we don't repeat ourselves. Let's go all the way down, say after validate. Let's call this one load dialog. And we need to pass in a fragment name. Let's name it as fragment name. And let's actually copy one of those fragment loads. And we no longer can hardcode this part. It should come from this argument. So let's convert this to a string template, and then this part will be named dollar curly braces fragment name. We don't know what it will be named, so let's remove this part. And since we want to load the fragments asynchronously, we have to return a promise here. So let's say return new promise, and we will get resolve and reject functions. And let's move everything inside here. And in here, instead of opening our dialog, we simply return it with the resolve function. Now let's use our new method. This should be the first one for sort. If there is no sort dialog, we get it from our method. Actually, before removing it, let me paste this so I can copy and paste the name of the fragment. And since it's returning a promise, we say then, and then we get back a dialog. And in here we store it in a variable, and we already do this part inside our load dialog method. We can skip that and we simply open it as so. Else if we already have it, we simply open it. Now let's copy this part here and use it here as well. This is the name this time. Oh, these should be strings, obviously. And this we can get rid of. And lastly, this group dialog. And this should be it. Let's see if everything works as expected. Okay, it's not resolve, it's resolve, obviously. Once again, 188 O dialog, let's see. Oh, since we're here, we forgot this one. Let's also add it. This is named the create product. And obviously I forgot to copy these names here. So this should be our create product. And for the rest, our sort dialog is correct. This should be filter dialog. This should be our group dialog. And now if we check, hopefully, oh, okay, we are resolving in the wrong place. This should be inside here. And now let's see, everything should still work. Filtering seems to be working. Let's sort by product name, descending. Looks okay. Let's see if we can group by category. Also looks fine. That's all for this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.